Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Play by Play podcast, a sports show. My name is Leo West, and I am excited for the inaugural one. Just a couple things before heading into this. I was thinking about doing I don't know, like a weekly recap, like your sports week or whatever, and stuff like that. But we got a good show planned for today. First thing I want to talk about is my initial reaction to the Super Bowl. Then we'll go into the head coach hirings for the NFL, NBA trade deadline winners and losers. And then, there's some other stuff like pitchers and catchers report for for MLB. And then I've been watching a lot of college basketball recently. I watched SJU and UConn this weekend. I mean, it was a hell of a game. And there's some other stuff we could talk about with that too. Without further ado, let's get into it. So yeah, if you guys have been living under a rock, which I hope you guys haven't been, the Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Kansas City Chiefs 40 to 22 in the Super Bowl this past Sunday in New Orleans. And I mean, you know, as someone who is in and around this, the Philadelphia tri-state area between Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, I found the game pretty entertaining. I'm not an Eagles fan, I'm a Seahawks fan. I found it pretty entertaining because I know a lot of Eagles fans, and I'm glad they were happy. And I just wanted the Chiefs to lose, in all honesty. I mean, I know it sounds like cliche or whatever, but I just didn't want to see them win because I just don't like dynasties. Like I like dynasties for like 2 years, and then like if they win two Super Bowls, that's enough. Just on to the next team. So. But obviously, Jalen Hurts winning that Super Bowl MVP, and he's kind of who I wanted to start with, for this one. Jalen Hurts, I mean, what a game! 222 passing yards, two touchdowns, and he had a really impressive game. I think 76 rushing yards and another rushing touchdown. He had 293 total yards and three total touchdowns this weekend. And the Chiefs made sure that Jalen Hurts was the guy who was going to beat them, and he was the guy that beat them. The Chiefs defense really held up in that first half, and I'll get to the Chiefs defense in a second, but I just don't think they were really prepared for Jalen Hurts to take over the game, which is just like how are you like you like Steve Spagnuolo is the best defensive coordinator in all the NFL, and they weren't treating Jalen Hurts like he was a threat, like a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, and that's kind of where the Eagles were really able to succeed. In that second half, like Jalen Hurts was just gashing them. It was just it was really a sight to behold. I'm a big Jalen Hurts guy. I love Jalen Hurts. When those Russell Wilson trade rumors were going around, however, 4 or 5 years ago when he was going to go to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts was in those trade discussions, I wanted Jalen Hurts to go to the Seahawks, man. I wanted him to go there. So I'm just a big Jalen Hurts believer. I just don't know why they weren't putting a spy on him. You have like these guys like Lou Chenal, Nick Bolton, and Drew Tranquil who are excellent tacklers and who can do that. Hold out and make sure that Jalen Hurts doesn't run for 70 gosh darn yards in the Super Bowl, but it just wasn't something that they wanted to do. But other than that, I thought he looked really well. He looked really, really good in the pocket, passing the ball. The deep ball was working. I mean, on that first drive, he had the pass to AJ Brown that was called back for offensive pass interference, which I mean, I thought that was the thing where it's like, oh, here we go. The refs are already starting. They're already starting to get on the Eagles. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, but it ended up not being the case because the Eagles did not need any help. Just absolutely dismantling the Chiefs there. But yeah, I just was really impressed by Jalen Hurts. I thought that was a well deserved Super Bowl MVP because I mean, if you could give a Super Bowl MVP to a position group, I would say give it to the Eagles D line because man, those guys were unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't even the Jalen Carters or the I mean Jordan Davis did have a sack. It wasn't even you know Jalen Carter, Brandon Graham, the guys you expect to do that, or Nolan Smith. It was Jalen Hunt and Milton Williams and Josh Sweat getting the pressure on the Chiefs defense. I mean, it looked so eerily reminiscent of that Super Bowl between the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. I think we can all remember where Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. It literally was just like that. except the only difference is that, you know, Patrick Mahomes was able to get some passes off to Xavier Worthy. But yeah, it was just a really impressive game. Circling back to the original point I wanted to make, it was just a really impressive postseason, not just Super Bowl for Jalen Hurts. I mean, 71% completion percentage, five passing touchdowns, five rushing touchdowns, only one turnover, and that was in the Super Bowl. He had a 108.6 QB rating, and man, like what more can you ask for him? What more do you want him to do to show you like what more does Jalen Hurts have to do to show to the rest of the NFL community and people in the NFL sphere, especially to Dan Orlovsky, who I just saw apologized, made a formal apology to Jalen Hurts, which I thought was pretty entertaining. But yeah, look, what more does Jalen Hurts have to do to get on there and be part of this top seven, top five quarterback discussion? Because I think he's put his name in there. I think he's put his hat in the ring for a while, to be honest. But yeah, Super Bowl MVP Jalen Hurts. I really hope the Eagles continue to just keep trusting Jalen Hurts and keep that thing going. I mean, if you want to look back into the beginning of the ending of last season, beginning of this season, there was no trust in Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. I think your Philly fans are a little spoiled because you guys were calling for Jalen Hurts to be traded. Like, oh, I don't trust him. Like, I was on Eagles Twitter. It was not a good place to be at the beginning of the season. And the same thing with Sirianni. A couple of my friends here are Eagles fans. They're telling me how they wanted Sirianni fired. I'm like when you're 2-2, oh, I can see that a little bit. I just think he's a glorified hype man. He led you guys to two Super Bowls and a Super Bowl win. After looking at this, 1,000 yards away, from bird's eye view, pun intended. I still think that Sirianni's the guy. I think he's earned himself. I think a lot more good graces than Doug Peterson, because Doug Peterson only took him to one Super Bowl. Dick Sirianni's been to two Super Bowls and has led this Eagles team to 10 plus wins the last three seasons. That's impressive. That's something that you can't take away from him. I know this Jalen Hurts segment turned into a Nick Sirianni rant, but like I think he's earned the respect of the Eagles and Eagles fans, and I think the rest of the league too. Any team would be lucky to have Nick Sirianni, and he does. Like I heard, Tom Brady, Kevin Burkhardt were saying how Sirianni really does fit into this South Philly mold of a head coach. He's just like the rest of the crazy sons of guns that were on Broad Street last Sunday, and are going to be on Broad Street again on Friday, just going buck wild. And it's a perfect marriage. It's a perfect marriage. But speaking of the Eagles' defense, I want to talk about their defensive line, and then I want to talk about Zach Bond and Cooper DeJean. But like this Eagles defense was absolutely insane. Josh Sweat, 2.5 sacks. If it wasn't going to be Jalen Hurts, it should have been Josh Sweat who won that Super Bowl MVP. I mean, this is a guy who has been with the Eagles for how long, flying under the radar. Like, this is a guy who is not underappreciated, but just an absolutely underrated player. This is a guy who's going to get a bag this offseason because Josh Sweat has earned his place in the NFL. And then going down the board of who got sacks here, Jalex Hunt with a half a sack. I know Jordan Davis got a sack, and then Milton Williams, a big D tackle from Louisiana Tech, with 2 sacks. I'm a big Milton Williams fan. That's one of the guys I actually do know. I did know before the Super Bowl who were on the Eagles. I really hope that the Seahawks go out and get him and replace Draymond Jones with, with Milton Williams, because that guy looks like a baller, man. He's gonna get a bag this offseason. He's gonna be one of those guys who gets like 4 years, 75, 80 million, because I mean he's earned it. He's earned it too. Not just this season, but not just the season, but the playoffs have really been a platform for him to show how great he can be at an NFL level. And he's been with the Eagles for 4 years, and there's no fifth year option. I mean, I'm gonna for non-day one picks, and I'm gonna see. I think it's gonna be a hard time the Eagles have keeping him around right now, because let me tell you, they have a lot of other contracts to sort out going forward. And I don't know if Milton Williams is going to be the one of those guys they bring back. I mean, because like you look at it, you already got Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, and I think in the draft you could probably end up be replacing Milton Williams with your first round pick, whether it be a defensive tackle on day one. I don't think they're going to be able to get Mason Graham, but they're like Shamar Stewart. They're going to be some other guys down the board that they could probably get. But yeah, just I mean, if you could give Super Bowl MVP to one side of the ball, it would be this. I mean, Eagles defense. I think this Eagles defense was about as dominant as a defense we've seen since my Seahawks played in the Super Bowl and Super Bowl 48. I was completely blown away how well that they played. And look, 22 points. The scoreboard was not reflective of how this defense played. I mean, they were forcing turnovers too, not just getting pressure on the quarterback. They're forcing turnovers too. And I was watching a Theo Ash video on TikTok the other day, and he was saying how the Eagles had a 0% blitz rate the entire game. 0% blitz rate. That is it. You just don't see that in the NFL. And like the adage goes is, if you have to if you want to be a successful defense, you have to rush for and get pressure on the quarterback. And they got pressure on the quarterback every single play of the game, it seemed. I mean, Patrick Mahomes like the fact that he was able to escape some of that, like I feel like if this Super Bowl happened, when he was first happening, it would have been like, where's the help for Mahomes? But like Mahomes has like three All Pros on the offensive line: Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Joe Tooney. He's got the offensive line to be successful. Literally, they've won the last two Super Bowls with those exact guys. So it was just I was just absolutely blown away how well the defense was. I mean, they did three turnovers, two interceptions, and I'm wearing the Hawkeyes hat right now for Cooper DeJean. I actually had the pleasure of watching Cooper DeJean live. I went out to Iowa a couple years ago, and it was a sight to behold watching him return punts and playing defense. And the fact that I got to see him catch a pick six in the Super Bowl. It was really impressive. Also, he is a year older than me. I'm sitting here talking about a 22-year-old having the time of his life catching pick sixes in the Super Bowl, and I'm sitting here in my freaking dorm right now talking about it. I mean, that makes me feel old right there. Just thinking about an '03 kid playing in the Super Bowl. Unbelievable. But yeah, and then Zach Bond too. A guy who's gonna get like an absolutely massive contract. I mean, I thought I liked Zach Bond coming out of college. I thought he was gonna be, a great edge rusher, and he ended up being a day two pick by the New Orleans Saints a couple of years ago. And now he's like one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. I mean, he's like a return to the classic, big linebackers you've seen, like Brian Urlacher, Luke Kuechly, and my favorite linebacker of all time, Bobby Wagner. He's just a big hulking guy in the middle of the field. None of this hybrid nonsense. He's a like 6'2", 6'3", 240, 250, stand in the middle of the field, and he got an interception on Mahomes too. Like he's a great run stopper, but I was really impressed by the way he was understanding the zone defense and understanding his role within the Eagles' pass coverage defense. I just think it was really impressive that they kept him on that. They basically kept him there the entire game because usually they have Oren Burks or Nakobe Dean come out there, but of course Nakobe Dean for these playoffs. But yeah, just a really, really, really impressive team performance from the Philadelphia Eagles defensive unit. And Vic Fangio, I think he also deserves a pay raise as well. I mean, he finally gets the ring after being a coach in the NFL for 36, 37, 38 years. I mean, another all-time great coordinator. It's unfortunate, sometimes they just don't work out as head coaches, and Vic Fangio is just not one of those guys who works out as a head coach. But he's going to go down as one of the best coordinators in NFL history, alongside Steve Spagnuolo. So, just really impressive all around from the Eagles. Congratulations to my fellow Eagles fan, not my fellow Eagles fans. I'm not an Eagles fan. To the Eagles fans, listening or watching wherever you get these podcasts. Just yeah, congratulations, and we'll run it back. Hopefully I'm assuming they'll want to run it back next year with some of the same guys, but we'll see how the offseason plays out. Before we move on to anything else, What the hell is this new scoreboard? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I'll put it on screen right here. If you guys are watching it on YouTube, it'll just be right here. But I just don't understand what the process, the creative process there was to have a scoreboard that was half filled in, and they were using the friggin' Fortnite font to display the player stats. What the hell is that all about? I mean, I just don't get it. It just looks like an eyesore. They like Fox had a really good scoreboard. They really did have a good scoreboard too that we saw in the last Super Bowl, and they had a really good graphics package with that too. And I was a fan of that. I was totally a fan of that, and I'm still a fan of how they do like the touchdown graphics and stuff like that for the players. But I just don't know what the scoreboard is. I mean, it just looks like somebody put that in Canva. That's one of the things I was seeing is just it looks like somebody just put it in Canva and said, "Hey, this looks pretty good." And yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I really wish that they would have spent. It literally looks like they did not spend enough time, you know, coming up with a good idea. But it's whatever. And then the halftime show. I love the halftime show. I'm a big Kendrick Lamar fan. So that right there was just already enough for me to watch it, and I was fanboying the whole time. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I was really impressed. I know some of my friends weren't exactly impressed with Kendrick Lamar. I have this one friend who's a Drake fan who's now putting owl emojis, reacting with owl emojis to every single text I send in our group chat right now. So I'm just he's coping the way he's coping right now. That Kendrick Lamar is on top of the music sphere right now, probably on top of the world to be honest. I mean I know he's like 5'6", but like yeah he's pretty much up there. But yeah, uh, you know, for the neutral fan, all in all about the Super Bowl for the neutral fan, probably not a great entertainment value besides the Super Bowl halftime show. Probably not like the most entertaining Super Bowl. But I mean, he'll go down as one of the best BTA performances in Super Bowl history. I mean, the Eagles put belt to behind right there. So again, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. I wish you guys the best luck in the offseason trying to keep that team together, but also I really hope the Seahawks steal some of those players from you because we need a little bit more help on defense. But let's transition to some more NFL stuff. So there were new head coach hirings this offseason, and I wanted to talk about all of them as they were happening. But I got caught up with things in my life. So but I do have a tier list I'm gonna put right up on screen right here. It's also gonna be available on you can see it on Instagram, Twitter, probably on TikTok, on YouTube you'll be able to see it too. But yeah, it's just gonna go right here. Um and the tiers are D, C, B, A, and S. I don't really know why I have an S tier because I don't think any of these I feel like to have an S tier you would have to have like I don't know, like 40-year-old Bill Belichick. That's who you would have to hire to be an S tier. I mean, I think I don't think there were any S tier candidates, and I think it's way too early to judge S tier. So I just kind of left it in there just to kind of like let you know, guys, what my criteria was for this one. But like D tier was somebody. So let's just start off with D tier. Uninspiring hire. I don't think they're gonna go places last more than a year. C tier, a hire that makes kind of sense, but I don't really see like the long term vision of it. B tier, a hire that I think can be good, but I still have my doubts about it. And then A tier is just they got the best head coach candidates this year. I think they'll be set up for success um long term and stuff like that. But let's start off with D tier. So out of the 7 guys who got hired, I only have one guy in D tier, and that's Brian Schottenheimer right now, former Seahawks offensive coordinator and former Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator. I was not impressed by this hiring at all. Like he got fired from the Seahawks offensive coordinator in 2021. Did not call plays with the Cowboys. The only real claim to fame is he's Martin Schottenheimer's son. I don't really see the vision in that. I mean, he's just going to be another Jerry Jones yes man. I think that's already the common analysis between league circles right here is that he's just going to be there for one season. Someone to just like shake his head at whatever Jerry Jones does, say hey, then it's fine by me. I mean, Cowboys fans, I don't know how you're feeling about this. Uh, I'm I'm personally not too impressed by it. I definitely think there are better candidates out there because, like, I mean, let's just start off. I think they should have fired Mike McCarthy, not this season, but like last season. After that playoff loss, I think they should have just cut ties right there and started all over again. And they probably could have gotten a better head coaching candidate from there. And now this offseason, why aren't they going out and hiring Brian Flores? Like, you let Dan Quinn go. He went to the Commanders, and look at the success the Commanders are having. If you get a defensive head coach and some solid offensive staff for him, I don't see like this. And this Cowboys team is more talented than the Commanders. They have a more talented roster than the Commanders, and I can say that confidently. They have a better O line. They have a better D line. They have Micah Parsons. They have good. They have Trayvon Diggs on the outside. I mean, it's a shame that Demarion Overshown tore his ACL this year because he was looking really really good, and a player I have expectation like hopefully I had really high hopes for coming into this season. And I really hope he's going to be able to continue his high level of play, after his season-ending injury. But I just don't understand why they didn't hire a guy who just had more clout in the NFL space. I mean, I guess because you don't want to work for Jerry Jones, and I really doubt Jerry Jones really contacted Brian Flores, given Jerry Jones' past. But I just, it just doesn't make much sense to me. So I'm gonna go Brian Schottenheimer D tier. And in C tier, I have three head coaches right now. I have Aaron Glenn of the Jets, Liam Cohen of the Jaguars, and Pete Carroll of the Raiders. I want to start with Aaron Glenn. If this was any other team, I think Eric Glenn would be in. He would have a good case. He would have a really good case for B tier, even a case for A tier. But you've looked at who the Jets have hired. So outside of Adam Gase, he's the only non-defensive coach they hired in like the last 10 or 15 years. You hired Robert Saleh to stabilize defense. He stabilized the defense. Then you fire Robert Saleh and you're gonna bring in Aaron Glenn, who had a worse defense, like who was like had a worse defense when he was with the Lions than when Saleh was with the 49ers. Then granted, 49ers had a lot of talent. You think about who was on that team. He had Robert Saleh was working with DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Richard Sherman when he was there. And Aaron Glenn, the best player he had to work with was Aiden Hutchinson. And Aiden Hutchinson's a great player. Don't get me wrong, he was a great player, but I don't think he was reaching the levels. I don't think he was reaching levels like Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner were being first and second team All Pros. So, but like it just didn't make much sense to me. Like, wouldn't you want to bring in new ideas into this team instead of just trying to, oh, let's start with the defense. Let's start with the defense. Like, your offense needs major, 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 major work. Look, I don't think there's going to be Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams looks like he's going to be out the door here. You got Breece Hall. You got Garrett Wilson. Those are your two building blocks right there. I don't understand the hesitancy to go out and get somebody who's going to put the ball in their hands and run a really creative offense. It just it just doesn't make much sense to me. I think Aaron Glenn is he's a real energetic guy. I like the fact that the Jets brought in a former player. I think it's a very respectable thing to do, and he's on a long-term deal. So the Jets clearly have some faith in this guy. I just don't understand the continual theme of hiring defensive coaches for the New York Jets, but we'll see how it goes. Then we have for the culture, Duval, Liam Cohen. Um, See, I do think that this is a decent hiring. I do think he's going to do some things with this Jaguars offense. Get to hopefully improve. Whisper like be a QB whisperer to Trevor Lawrence and get him into places where he needs to succeed. But other than that, I just think there's a lot of repairing. There's a lot of repairing and retooling that needs to happen to this Jaguars roster because Travis Etienne is just not the player we expected him to be. I mean, he lost essentially the starting job to Tank Bigsby, and then Tank Bigsby fell off, and then it went to back to Travis Etienne. Besides Brian Thomas, his wide receiver room it doesn't really inspire me. I mean, I know they got Brandon Scherf on the offensive line. It's just this Jaguars team really needs just a lot of work going into the next couple of years. And I really hope for Jaguars fans that Liam Cohen is the guy to rebuild and show some positivity, like show some positive signs that the Jaguars are heading in the right direction. Because right now they're backsliding. After that Chargers playoff win, They've done nothing. They have done nothing. And I just hope it works out for Jaguars fans. I did like a lot of the stuff Liam Cohen was doing with Buccaneers offense, and I think if you're able to replicate that and put his own kind of personal twist on it, I think it'd be good because I think Trevor Lawrence has the potential to be better than Baker Mayfield. I mean, they're going to pay him a lot of money, or they already paid him a lot of money, so it's they got some work to do. That's all I'm going to say. They got some work to do. Liam Cohen's got some work to do in Duval, and we'll see how it goes from here. But Liam Cohen D tier, and then or C tier, and the last guy I have in C tier, I have Pete Carroll. Don't get me wrong. Pete Carroll is he's gonna be a fantastic head coach. He is a fantastic head coach. Like I honestly think he might have a case to be a Pro Football Hall of Fame head coach. The career he's had. He's an old guy. He's 73 years old. This Raiders team, they're not gonna be good this year or the next year unless they have some shock turnaround or get some shockingly good draft luck. But they are a terrible drafting team. They've made moves in free agency. I like the move of Christian Wilkins, but he kind of was a little bit of an underperformer, and then of course got hurt this year. I just don't think Pete Carroll really fits the timeline. I think Pete Carroll's a head coach, like a great head coach. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's got ideas that I think people are going to listen to, and I think he's a really respectful, or he's going to be a well respected voice inside that Raiders locker room. But I just don't. It just the timelines just don't match up to me. Like it just because he's still the oldest coach in the NFL and will continue to set that record however long he's on the Raiders for. But I just don't understand why they won't go out and hire a younger guy that fits this timeline. I just think it's another boneheaded move from upstairs that it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And Pete Carroll was one of those guys who was out there, and kind of. And I think if a winning team hired him, or a team that was close to winning hired him, I think he'd be able to take a good team, make it a great team, or an okay team, make him a good team. But this is a bad team. This is an objectively bad team. You have no quarterback right now. We'll see what they do in the draft. Essentially, no wide receivers outside of Jacoby Myers. You got Brock Bowers, but again, when you looking on the defensive side of the ball, besides Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby, it's not really a whole lot going on right there. So they're going to need a major retool to this defense, or honestly rebuild to this defense, because they're still in the midst of a rebuild since 2002. Since Rich Gannon won MVP, this team has done nothing. So they really need to get their crap together if they want to win with Pete Carroll. So he's in the C tier. And then in B tier, I have Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is he's a very good offensive coordinator. He could be great. I just think a lot of the production that he had was because the Eagles roster was so talented. But after Nick Sirianni stopped calling plays at the end of last year, they were looking for a guy to come into the offensive coordinator spot and really get things moving. Get things get things moving, get the offense in the right spot they want it to be. And and Kellen Moore is a guy who learned from his mistakes. They were 2-2 this season. Kellen Moore said, "We're passing the ball way too much. We got to zero in this run game." And what did they do? They went 16-1 in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl. So I think Kellen Moore is going to bring some bright ideas to this offense. I mean, the Saints are a team that, like, they've been perennially in cap hell these past couple of years. So I think that once they navigate that, and once they are hopefully able to clear some of these awful contracts off their books and start essentially from ground zero, I think this is that Kellen Moore can be a guy who's with his team for, at his ceiling, I could see he could be there for 5, 6, 7 years. Guy bring some playoff success back to New Orleans. And we'll just have to see what this roster looks like from there. But I just think good move. They did the best with what they could. I think Kellen Moore was a better candidate than some of these guys that were hired earlier. So I think that was a good move from the Saints, and we'll see going forward how they do it. I just I don't know how much longer Alvin Kamara is going to be there. They got Kendre Miller, but he's only shown flashes. And then in the wide receiver room, you got Chris Olave. Who's going to be the quarterback for this team? Who's going to be on this offensive line once because Ramczyk has faced a lot of injuries. I don't know if he's going to retire or anything, but we'll see. I mean, all these teams have question marks. I think the Saints have less question marks than some of these teams too. But I just think Kellen Moore is more of a solid hire than some of these guys that I have lower down the board. But yeah, Kellen Moore, the only guy in B tier, the one guy I have in B tier, and I have two guys in A tier. I want to start off with Mike Vrabel of the Patriots. I honestly feel bad for Gerard Mayo. You know, I just think, maybe the lights were too bright for him in New England because you look at the defense from 2023 into 2024, the defense got worse under him as head coach. And they had, they went through like a whole draft cycle, a whole offseason, adding players to that defense. I just think it was an unfortunate situation for Gerard Mayo. And I probably, I don't know if he's gonna get another shot as a head coach. Maybe he'll be like a really good defensive coordinator, going forward. It just kind of sucks because I mean Mike Vrabel is a really good head coach, so like, and he's also a former Patriots player, so he kind of really got the cruddy end of the stick right there. But Mike Vrabel, man, that is a perfect hire for the Patriots. It's a culture fit. He's gonna come in here. He's a hard nosed guy. He's a guy that has the respect of his players. He's getting out there in practices and just his like vest and three-quarter zip, whatever, going toe to toe with guys on full pads. It's just this is a guy I really like, and I think he'll really be able to improve this defense. I think bringing in a guy like Mike Vrabel, like see if like this is the kind of like established head coaching hire that I feel like the Raiders were trying to go for, but Pete Carroll's just too old, and Mike Vrabel's got a lot of years left in this league as a head coach because he's shown that he can. The Tennessee Titans were a one seed under Mike Vrabel. And I think that he could bring that kind of success to New England. Obviously, it's going to take time because New England's just not a great team. Got Drake May. You need weapons around him. You need wide receivers. You need running backs. You need tight ends. You need an offensive line around Drake May. But I think Mike Vrabel has that pull, and he could kind of do some variation to the Patriot way. I just think this team's going to look a lot more promising than it did at the end of last year in the 2025 NFL season. But yeah, Mike Vrabel, A tier. And last guy I have, Ben Johnson. I mean, man, like if you guys weren't like last year, a lot of people were excited about the Chicago Bears, me included. I fell for the hype. I will be the first one to admit I fell for the hype. Man, he like Ben Johnson. That is an offensive mind right there. I mean, you could critique Ben Johnson a little bit for getting away from the run game in that NFC Championship game, but like they were just the Commanders were just outpacing them. And then the same thing with the 49ers too in that NFC Championship game um, in 2023. I mean the divisional round against the Commanders, the NFC Championship game against the 49ers in 2023. He got away from the run game too. If I just really hope that there isn't a lack of continuity for Ben Johnson because Dan Campbell sticks to his guns, and I really hope Ben Johnson was able to learn that lesson, stick to the strengths of the offense. I think the strengths of the offense in Chicago is that pass game. I don't think Matt Eberflus he was an all right head coach, but I just don't think I just don't want. He just clearly didn't understand clock management. Like I'm not even trying to be sarcastic, but like how do you mess that up when you have the chance to win on Thanksgiving at Ford Field? You can't mess that up, man. You can't mess that up. It's inexcusable. And hopefully Ben Johnson's learned the lesson of hopefully he'll learn the lesson and improve on head coach Bears head coaches at last. But I'm just really excited to see what Ben Johnson has in store with Caleb Williams right now because this was probably the dream head coaching spot for anybody who was going to get hired. You have a generational quarterback prospect. You got DJ Moore. I mean, you don't have a great offensive line, but like there's a lot of pieces that Ben Johnson can take hold of and really make this offense his own. They will definitely need to address offensive line in the offseason because Caleb Williams got sacked way too many times. That's something that's inexcusable. You don't want him being David Carr. You don't want him losing his confidence. Because he was running around like Patrick Mahomes, and you can't like Caleb Williams is most sacked quarterback last year, and you can't have that. If you want your offense to succeed and you want Caleb Williams to improve, he's got to have time to throw the ball, and he doesn't need that much time. He just needs a little bit of time. So, but Ben Johnson, A tier, best head coach hiring out of everybody so far. But of course, we shall see. Going forward, like I said again, you can see my tier list on my Twitter. It'll be up on Instagram as well. I'll probably make a TikTok video to it as well. But yeah, and then I think we got time to do. I don't know. Do we have time for that? maybe we'll do like a part two. Maybe we'll do a part two to this. Because we have NBA trade deadline winners and losers, but I think I just may make a separate episode of that. We'll see. Um, yeah. All right. Well, let's. Yeah, I think we'll do a separate episode with that. But I want to talk about pitchers and catchers reporting soon for baseball season. So that was my NFL segment. We're gonna transition over to baseball a little bit right now. I'm a big Phillies fan. I'm really excited for the season that's going on. We can go back and forth. Talking about who had the best offseason and stuff like that. I definitely think that will be an episode for another time. Um, but we'll see. But spring training is starting really soon. All these teams report at the latest by Thursday, February 18th. So just a week away from full teams being in spring training. You already got the Cubs. You already got the Cubs down there. You got the Dodgers down there in the Cactus League. You got the Tampa Bay Rays down in the Grapefruit League right now. I mean, I think it's funny that they're gonna be playing a spring training stadium this season. But yeah, I just excited for baseball. I'm really happy that's gonna be starting soon, and hopefully your team can win the World Series. But I'm just hoping it's the Phillies. Um, and then some things I wanted to talk about before we close out was college basketball right here. So Auburn, if you're unfamiliar, Auburn, the number one team in the country, stays number one team country after losing to Florida last week. Duke moves up to Duke is number two right now, even though they lost as well. And you got Alabama at number three. But this Saturday is Alabama Auburn. I mean, we're already watching the SEC title game right there. That's gonna be a really impressive team as Nate Oates' team looks to take down number one team. Yeah, Clemson upset Duke this weekend, and Creighton upset Marquette, this weekend as well. And I don't know if you guys saw Michigan State come back from I don't know, it was like 23 or something nuts like that against Oregon at halftime. That was a really impressive game for Michigan State, a team that I'm looking out for. And then Kansas took on Kansas State. I think pretty sure Kansas State beat them. But yeah, just some stuff to look forward to going on as we get closer to March Madness. I'll be keeping my eye on college basketball. I'll keep my eye on baseball. I'll be keeping my eye on all the sports because that's what we do here at the Play by Play Show. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for episode one right here. Thank you very much for watching, or listening, or wherever you get your podcast. I just really appreciate you guys tuning in for that. We'll have some more episodes to come. And you guys will be the first to know if you guys are keeping up with our socials. There again, everything is in the link in the bio. I can put them in the link in the description on YouTube. Maybe the same thing with Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. But yeah, I've been Leo West, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.